Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Belmont Bunch for one of my favorite types of videos, the prediction video. We have this year's playoff bracket with stats. Not advanced stats, unfortunately. I can't be Dom LeShusen in this one. But I am ready to unveil my predictions. A little bit quicker than last year, where I think I did like a smattering of videos. Got one video. We're going to do all the rounds. We're going to try to make it quick like. I'm going to switch to this side because we're going to start in the West. All right. So we've got Colorado, St. Louis. So in our podcast the other day where we had Isles v. Cats, thank you so much for coming on. Isles x Cats, my bad. Don't want to put them against each other. We talked about Vegas being the 1 seed. Well, guess what? Colorado won their final game in convincing fashion and won the President's Trophy last minute. And now they get a little bit of an easier first round matchup, at least on paper. I am holding that paper. So Colorado in the regular season series, not super dominant. 5-3-0. St. Louis went 3-5-0. With the 3-point system, not everything is as clean as that. Colorado, 3.52 goals per game, 2.36 goals against, so top 5 in both. 22.7% power play for Colorado. That makes sense with all the star power. Then you've got 83.1 on the PK. Not really any weaknesses. And in goal, Grubauer has been fantastic. They have had, spells of injuries. They went out and got Dubnyk. They got Johansson. It's going to be interesting to see, what Colorado can do in net. I think a lot of people are doubting them. St. Louis comes in. Not a great year for St. Louis. 2.98 goals for, 2.98 goals against. 23.2% on the power play. 77.8 on the PK. One sec. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I'm leaving that in. There's a dehumidifier. Anyway, what was I saying? St. Louis, not a great year for them. Decent. They do have a good power play, so if there's a strength to keep an eye on, it's their power play. They're good down the middle. If O'Reilly's still there as an amazing two-way center. But, and Tarasenko coming back, very helpful at one point in the season. They brought in Hoffman. He's coming in a little bit hot, so look out. Maybe he can get going again in the playoffs. The perennially injured Jaden Schwartz, but he's great when he's on the ice. Braden Shen. There's a lot of guys I like, but their goaltending leaves a lot to be desired. So I've got Colorado in the series. I'll put that up there. Probably not as easy as I would have first thought, based on the season series a little bit. Again, the season series plays a role, but you can't overvalue it. We've had, last year, I always use this example, but Carolina, I think they went 0-4 against the Rangers last year, and they swept them in 3 games in the qualifiers. So, it plays a role, but you also can't go too much into it. A lot of it this year, I just tried to go based on, best team. Seems kind of obvious, but I tried to simplify it a little bit this year. Vegas and Minnesota could be a great series. I have this one going 7. At first glance, I was kind of like, Vegas, come on. But the stats are a little bit closer than I would have thought. Vegas, 3.39 goals for per game. 2.18 Jennings for their 2 goalies, Robin Lehner and Marc-Andre Fleury. As the best, at least allowed goals in the league, best defense. 17.8% power play. You would expect that maybe to be a little bit higher with some of the pieces they have offensively, so that's a little bit surprising. 86.8 PK. That's elite. They went 3-4-1 against Minnesota. Just got done saying I won't overvalue season series, but generally I take that as Minnesota gives them trouble. And that's why I have this going 7. Minnesota, 3.21 goals per game. Kirill Kaprizov has been magnificent for them. They've turned into one of the more interesting teams in the league, whereas, even when they weren't bad in recent years, they haven't been particularly really exciting. They one of their signings that looked really bad, Cam Talbot, has worked pretty well. Capo Kakinen, one of my favorite names in the league, has served as a really good 1B to him. 2.84 goals per game, little bit high, especially against the best defense in the league. So that's the pitfall on why I do have Vegas winning this. Their power play is almost identical. Minnesota 17.6, and Minnesota's PK is fine, but Vegas's is elite. I'm going to give this to Vegas. I know it's not all that shocking, but I do think 7, and I think Minnesota's building to something here. They have a lot of, obviously, Kaprizov just with his rookie year. There's something brewing here, and they've had an excellent season, and if they win this series, you can't rule them out for winning this division. They could give anybody a fight. So keep Minnesota in mind as a good dark horse. Now to the North. Now, these stats will change, but the playoffs start tomorrow, and the regular season is still ongoing. Toronto is playing tonight, I believe, so their stats will change. This is as of the filming, which is Friday at 2:31. That's what it is right now. Toronto versus Montreal. First of all, just excited that this is a series because they haven't played since, I think it was 79, they said. Who's they? And it's completely two different philosophies. You've got kind of a grinding team last year in Montreal that gave Philly fits and beat Pittsburgh. So that's interesting. And of course, in goal, they're always a story because of Carey Price. But Jake Allen's been really good this year. Carey Price has been injured. So that'll be interesting to see who starts if Carey is ready to go. Toronto has really been the best they've been in my lifetime, in a lot of people's lifetimes. They won their first division title, I think, since 99, 2000. They've looked really convincing in their division. And I'm not going to go as far as the Mickey Mouse stuff that other people have talked about, although it is fun just in terms of trolling. But for my serious person video perspective, Toronto has been excellent this year, and they look a little bit different than the teams that were a little bit more frail. And I don't mean that physically, I mean kind of mentally. The stats, 3.35 goals per game for Toronto. Makes sense. 2.62, that's the big one. Better defensively this year by a lot. And I'm sure a big streak from Jack Campbell was helpful, where he was excellent. But you also, I got to give credit, they brought in Brody. That's been a really good move for them. So they're a little bit deeper on the blue line than they had been, for sure. So got to give them that. Their power play 20.3. With the amount of guys they have, I would expect that to be a little bit higher, but this is very high expectations on an elite offense. So 20.3 is still pretty good. Their penalty kill is a weakness that we will track in this bracket. 78.3. They went 7-2-1 to Montreal's 3-6-1 against them. Again, 3-point games. Montreal, 2.77 goals per game, 2.89 goals against. Again, stats aren't final because games are to be played in this division. 19.2% power play, pretty good for Montreal. 78.5 PK. So their PK, basically the same as Toronto's. Their power play, pretty similar, but they don't put the puck in the back of the net as much. They don't defend as well, which is a little bit shocking. And so it makes it a little bit easier to put the Leafs on to the second round for the first playoff series since either 0-1 or 0-2. I know they beat the Islanders in one of those. Anyway, moving on from that, Edmonton and Winnipeg. You've got in Edmonton and Winnipeg two very talented offensive teams, 3.25 goals per game for Edmonton, 3.02 for Winnipeg. Defensively, pretty similar, 2.68 Edmonton, 2.73 Winnipeg. Power play, 28.1 Edmonton, ridiculous. 23.1 Winnipeg, 82.2% PK to 80.3 in favor of Edmonton. And Edmonton won 7 of the 9. So on paper, I think this would be an excellent series based on the numbers being so close. The season series does play a role here. I believe Winnipeg has lost 5 in a row in regulation to Edmonton. Not great. And in goal, I would say, obviously, advantage Winnipeg. Offensively, I'd say advantage Edmonton. Defense might be a wash. So this is a pretty close series. I think I have it in 6 going to Edmonton. I will not go against Connor McDavid in the first round. In this one, he's just too good right now, to quote Urinating Tree, in reference to Pekka Rinne from a few years back. All right. So, flip it over. We're going to do the rest of the first round first. We've got... Let's start with down south here. Carolina, Nashville. Carolina, 3.13 goals per game. 2.39 goals against. 25.6% power play. Pretty good. 85.2% PK. They are elite. They are an elite team. And despite, my anger at them beating the Islanders a few years ago, I tend to root for them against non-Islander teams. That is partially because I want to believe in their team build, their roster construction. That's the word I was looking for. Because it's such a balanced lineup with good goaltending that they don't overspend on, and good defense and good offense. It does a little bit of everything, and it's so good. Aho, Svechnikov, Martin Nikas continues to grow as a player. They get Teravainen back at the right time. In goal, that in years past you would have said, in goal, it's like that's their weakness. But Mrazek had a pretty good year. I know he missed a lot of time. The big thing more was Nedeljkovic, who had a big breakout this year. They have Reimer, who's pretty steady. So they have a stable of goalies that they can toss out there and feel comfortable. And I shouldn't spend too much more time on this because I'm picking Carolina. Nashville, 2.65 goals per game, 2.70 goals against, 17.6% power play. Awful penalty kill at 75.4. They went 2-5-1 against Carolina. This is an easy one that I won't overspend time on, which I know I'm bad at. Carolina in, we're going to call it 5 because UC Saros is always a danger to steal a game. So, and Nashville, the last 2 games of the season series, won and played fairly well. So give credit there. But I don't think they have the scoring depth that Carolina does in a 7-game series. Florida, Tampa Bay, probably my favorite series of the first round. Definitely my favorite series of the first round. Florida comes in 5-2-1 against Tampa, 3.36 goals per game. Florida quietly more goals than Tampa. I know Tampa fans. I know they were missing a lot of guys, so it could be a little bit misleading there. You've got 2.70 goals against for Florida, 2.59 goals against for Tampa. 20.5% power play for Florida, 22.3 for Tampa, elite power plays. 79.8% PK for Florida, 84.2% for Tampa. I want to pick Florida very badly because I love they halfway through the year I still felt they were frauds, and I got to give so much credit for them to winning me over. Huberdeau and Barkov are who they are, but they've really done an amazing job of replacing the goals lost from Dadonov walking and Hoffman walking, and haven't missed a beat offensively. They brought in Carter Verhaeghe. Yeah, that's an easy makeup. 36 points for Carter Verhaeghe, and he's getting hot again at the right time. He's coming back from injury, and Florida is getting healthy. So is Tampa, obviously, so that's good. Both teams loaded for bear, and this should be a physical series based on the last 2 games of the regular season, which went lopsided to Florida, but Tampa Bay, again, didn't seem very interested in seeding, just more so in establishing presence and getting healthy. I have to go with Tampa, and I think the Achilles foot, I would give the edge in goal to Tampa for sure. and the PK is a problem. That's a big problem. I know in the season series, I looked at, for this one, because I'm so interested in the series, both teams were about the same on the power play against each other. I think Tampa was actually marginally better. But the PK, and even with how Florida's been able to, figure out a way in goal, Chris Dredger, Spencer Knight has come up and played a game and played well. But I can't. It's kind of like Toronto. I can't. There's so much firepower for Tampa, and they were as good as they were without one of the best players in the world. So I have to give this one to Tampa. I don't have to. No one's making me, but I'm going Tampa in 7. To the East. The East. Let me flip my sheet over. Pittsburgh and the Islanders. Should I lead off with that, or should I finish with that? I'll lead off with it. Islanders went 2-4-2. So it's funny, because obviously they lost 4 out of 6, no matter what way you slice it. But, looking at that made me feel a little bit better about the fact that they played pretty poorly against the Penguins this year. The fact that, if they win a couple OT games, they're 4-4. So there's that. But the Islanders aren't playing their most inspired hockey. I know that they are a team. I don't like to just say, oh, this team can just turn it on, because I don't think a lot of teams can just go from 0 to 60. I think Tampa's the team that can do that. I think the Islanders, to an extent, can. Islanders 2.71 goals per game, 2.23 goals against. I think the second best defense in the league. 18.8% power play, which is a little bit higher than I thought it'd be. 83.7% PK. So pretty steady across the board. Obviously, as usual, can they score enough goals is the question. And there are signs that going into the playoffs, there are little things going together that could work. The second line starting to get going. Leo Komarov playing generally better outside of the Boston game. But this Pittsburgh team is really, really resilient, more so than the team that the Islanders swept a couple years ago, and more so than the Pittsburgh team that lost last year in the first round. So, I could be stepping into a pitfall here because Pittsburgh, the last couple years, has just, really failed at the starting gate. But they have 3.45 goals per game. They had a lot of injuries this year. It's very impressive that they were able to clean that up with that amount of depth and get 3.45 goals per game. 2.77 goals against per game. Early on, their goaltending was a problem, and not for other teams, for them. But as the season went on, Jari and DeSmith got into their groove and played really well, to the point that DeSmith could push, if the Islanders get on the board early in the series, and it's ugly, I could see DeSmith jumping right in, and it's another Thomas Vokoun situation, 2013. But for me, even with Pittsburgh's Achilles heel of their penalty kill being 77.4%, their power play is 23.7%, so that's pretty good. I don't think the Islanders' power play is good enough to really take advantage of that, and I don't think that's just going to go like that. I do have Pittsburgh in 7. I do think this Islander team has some areas where this, they could take advantage of some of the not so strong points of Pittsburgh. The series absolutely could go either way. Absolutely. And I almost talked myself just now in doing the preview into picking the Islanders, but I'm going to stick with my convictions. I'm going to say Pittsburgh is a little bit better this year. All right. Washington and Boston to finish up the first round. And you know what? This has been pretty long. I might go back on my promise. This might be a first round video only. Washington and Boston. One of the more intriguing first round series in terms of just parity. 4-4-0 Washington against Boston. 4-2-2 for Boston. That pesky 3-point system. Washington 3.36 goals for per game. 2.88 against. For Boston, 2.93 goals per game, 2.39 against. So a very solid defense. Weirdly, a strong amount of goaltenders that they could throw out. I guess this year with COVID, A lot of teams got to try out third and fourth goalies. Some of them figured it out. Carolina, Boston. Jeremy Swayman, who came out of nowhere, shut out the Islanders. That was predictable, though, based on how the Islanders do against backup goalies. Scott Wedgwood shut us out. Also, special teams. Both teams are excellent. Both teams are really good. 24.8% power play. Washington, 21.9% for Boston. 84% PK for Washington. Boston, 86%. I have in 7 the Boston Bruins. I think their depth finally woke up. It's at the right time. The other thing that makes this series incredibly, incredibly tough to call and makes me say this will go 7. Both teams, their depth is really solid. Washington just recently won a game. I know it was against Philly, but they beat Philly with, like, nobody on the ice. And they beat the Islanders a couple times this year with nobody on the ice. Well, nobody in terms of big names. Obviously, like Connor Sherry is a quality player, and he's earned an extension, as you've seen. And I don't know, they've just really found a way down the middle. I like Boston's goaltending more, and that is a key factor for me. Tuukka versus either Vitek Vanacek or Samsonov. Give me Tuukka. Yeah. So that's the first round. I just wanted to make sure I got this one out because playoffs start tomorrow. So I will very shortly film the second round, and you'll have that. And I'm very excited for this year's playoffs. That's it. That's all I've got. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Just wanted to make sure you see that. We'll see you next time on Belmont Bunch. Enjoy the playoffs, everyone.